Well, it's going to be video recorded. I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel.
Okay, good, good. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm 28 years old. I'm a graduate student in mathematics here at the University of Notre Dame. I'm a sixth year. I'm going to be finishing my dissertation in the upcoming months. Well, mostly what I'd like to do is I'd like to join this conversation that you started. And I really appreciate all of the stories of the people that do post them on YouTube. And so I feel like I have a story that people might gain something from. So I mostly wanted to share just how I found Jordan Peterson and this whole Christianity thing that I'm doing now, which is very weird.
Okay, well, go for it. Tell us about it.
So I'd say my parents were not very religious at home. My mom's parents were Protestant and Catholic, so they kind of had a difficulty figuring out what to do with her as far as that went. So I never really had religion in the home, but for kindergarten, my parents sent me to Florida Bible Christian School, which was a private school. Unfortunately, I saw that it's no longer there. I guess they packed up and moved out. But so I had a lot of upbringing in Christianity, learning the stories in kindergarten, and then it cost a lot of money, and I have a brother as well, so we started going to public school after that. But I still went to summer camp there. So every summer I would, we'd pray every day, we'd have Bible stories and things like that. And I was always the kind of kid who would look around and open my eyes when everyone was praying, kind of like, what's going on here? I don't know, because I wasn't very skeptical, but I was always a little skeptical. And there was a few weird things that happened that are a part of this story. So I remember one time on the bus asking one of the camp counselors about how's Noah 900 years old? Something like that, right? And they would say, oh, there's these fountains that people would drink water from that allowed them to live that long. And I was very skeptical.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I thought, is this adult lying to me? Was, just back of my head, kind of. And then eventually in this camp, which I loved the camp, it was very good. But once you get old enough, there's a certain day where they gather all the old students or the old campers, and they tell you about the story of the book of Revelation. And I remember them telling us that there's going to be barcodes on people's foreheads. And I thought that was really weird too. But I remember also in middle school walking around thinking, oh, God can hear me. I shouldn't be thinking these things, right? So I think that really at a young age, I was kind of living in it, as we say in our Paul Vanderklay community. We're living in it, we're acting it out. But I remember very quickly, in ninth grade, the moment I became an atheist, right? I was in my world history class in ninth grade, and I remember just learning about the ancient Greek religions and the Roman religions, and I put two and two together. If there's all these different religions, they must all be wrong or something. And so that was when I became an atheist, I guess. I quickly started just reading science. So it's in ninth grade and through high school, I read Richard Dawkins's work, The God Delusion, The Blind Watchmaker, and actually his best book is The Ancestor's Tale, because it's not about religion at all. It's like the Canterbury Tales, except it goes backwards in time through common ancestors, and it just explains a lot of the theory of evolution. And it was his best work, I think.
Oh, interesting.
But it was very scientific, and in this formative period of my time, I've always been like a fundamentalist kind of person. So when I became an atheist, I would look up the 2 Kings verse about the she-bears that attack the children, and I would just want to debate people. Uh, I had an atheist shirt from Richard Dawkins with the big A on it, like the scarlet letter.
Wow.
I had a necklace.
Wow, hardcore.
Yeah, it was a big part of my identity. But I was really into religion, and I took 2 religion classes in college, which were very important because part of what I want to get across.
Where did you go to college?
I did my undergrad at Florida International University.
Okay.
In Miami, Florida. I grew up in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
But I took a college class at Broward College while I was in high school. This is where you dual enrollment program where you get college credits.
Sure.
And the book we used in that course was called The Anatomy of the Sacred. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
The point of the book was to define religion. And the professor was Catholic, but we didn't really learn history of specific religions, but what does sacred mean? Mm-hmm. What is religion? And this is what really made Peterson so salient to me, is the book defines human beings as homo religious. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I've always understood that we're all religious whether or not we think we are.
God, no God. It's really, we just do religion with or without him.
And the second point that really drew me to Peterson was I've always, even as a militant atheist, and even now, I identify as a Christian, I guess. I've always disliked agnosticism because it's changing the question. The question is about belief and it's not about knowledge. So I always thought of agnosticism as a cop-out. Either you believe it or you don't. And so that was tied up in with acting.
Yeah.
What do you do, right?
Yeah. That's really interesting. I'd never thought, agnosticism is often perceived as atheism light, but you've got a real point there. And it hinges on this idea of believing, and that think it's very interesting, of course, with Peterson's kvetching about believing. So keep going.
Yeah. So this is some background. I took another religion class where it was more of a worldly, let's learn the basics of Islam, Christianity, Hinduism. They had a Jain, an actual Jainist who works at my undergrad come in and talk to us. So that was really helpful. But I was definitely a scientific materialist, and I don't know. I've got to the point where I'm getting a PhD in math, so I'm familiar with a lot of the mathematical stuff behind the physics, and I'm at the point now where I know enough to see when they're inserting their religious faith to the science, or I know where the empirical data stops and the speculation begins, right? So I'm not an expert, but I know enough. But I've always been very scientifically minded. I would read books about physics. I stopped reading literature. Just for the Tolkien reference for this video, I read The Lord of the Rings in middle school, but I don't really remember it.
Did you see the movies?
I saw the first 2.
Didn't even finish. All right. Well.
Oh yeah, it's not good. The comments are going to destroy me. But I was always into literature, and I switched to just pure nonfiction science, and I've just been immersed in this, and so I understand some of the finer points of science. But then, right before I graduated my undergrad to go to University of Notre Dame, all I did was take math classes, and so I had these basic biology 1 classes to take at the last minute.
Yeah.
And I took a class on philosophy, and that's where I encountered the logos. And that's what brings me to Christianity, is when I understood the logos, coming from the math side, I identified with that, and even outside of Christianity, the logos became my religious understanding, or how to think about it. It's hard to talk about math, but partly I want to bring math into this conversation. As Esther O'Reilly and Adam Friended were talking about this, math becomes important.
I've talked to an alarming number of math graduate students in this journey, and a number of them haven't wanted their videos posted. So it's really interesting to me how many mathematicians are in this conversation, and I don't know why. Maybe you can shed light on that.
Yeah, so maybe I should get to that now. I definitely still want to talk about.
I don't want to derail you, so.
Yeah. Before this ends, I want to share the story of me getting to Christianity JBP, but this is important. So, understanding that we are homo religious, I interpreted mathematics as my religion. I would study math to achieve religious experiences of awe and wonder. There's a lot of sacred symbols. Math is awash in the occult, historically speaking, with the Pythagoreans. And I took a class in the branch of math called set theory, which is like a metaphysics of math. Everything in math, you can learn it black box, but when you dig deep down into what are we really talking about, one thing we came up with is set theory. And I got set theory tattoos because I'm a fundamentalist, like I said before. So I began.
That is super nerdy, my friend.
It is. But I love nerding out. So I began to interpret things religiously through mathematics, and I identified math as my religion, and that I use it to have a relationship with the sacred, something that's independent of time and place and connecting me throughout generations. The kind of math I do is to identify myself with people of the past. This is Carl Friedrich Gauss. My PhD advisor was going to throw this away, and I was like, you're not throwing that away. But so, for instance, and so this is where I really want to get, because outside of my religious life, I am a missionary with a different book. So my usual talking point is this. I ask people, what is the most published book of all time?
The Bible.
Yeah, easy. Especially here at Notre Dame, they get that one really quick.
Yeah.
But here's the question. What is the second most published book of all time?
I thought it was Mao's Red Book.
So that's the most printed book of all time. But in terms of publishers, independently publishing the book for printing.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yes, it's Euclid's Elements. It's a math book.
That's interesting.
And Euclid's Elements is in Greek. And so a lot of my ease into coming into Christianity is the tie with the ancient Greek world. And so I want to talk a little bit why I was so susceptible to Jordan Peterson's work about the Bible was I understood how complex the Bible was by understanding how complex Euclid's Elements is. So this is another book where the opening line of Euclid's Elements is an hour-long talk or more if you want to go back to the original Greek and talk about what this word means. And so I had some understanding of what it means to study something. So like everyone read Euclid. It was required until I guess the late 19th century is when they took it out of schools. If you were getting an education, you'd have to read this book. And Abraham Lincoln wanted to become a lawyer, and he told himself, I could not know what it means to demonstrate something if I did not study Euclid's Elements. And the Constitution of the United States is inspired by Euclid's Elements of having axioms and deducing the rest of the laws of government from the fundamental premises. So Euclid's Elements, I'm a missionary of Euclid's Elements. I've actually—
Fascinating to me.
Uh-huh. That's the second, for me, I usually tinge conspiracy with this. Why don't you know that the second most published book is a math book?
Yeah, why don't I know this? Why haven't I ever owned this book or read this book or studied this book?
Most mathematicians have never opened this book either. and it blows my mind.
Huh. Consisting of, as I just opened up Wikipedia, consisting of 13 books attributed to Euclid in Alexandria, Ptolemaic Egypt, 300 BC. Collection of definitions, postulates, and propositions, theorems and constructions, mathematical proofs. But of course, you know, here's the thing that, so I never talk about this. I was a failed math major at college and eventually switched to history. I really did enjoy math, but I got to a level of math that I looked around the classroom and I could see that, you know, I could do this, but I wasn't going to soar. And I could see other people that were just, and I thought, this isn't for me. And I went to history, and history I could, you know, I really enjoyed. So I left math behind, but I've always enjoyed math. And, but so here's the thing, math in 300 BC was not math in a secular materialist frame today. Those are very different. Those are very different things, even though people think, well, it's just math, it's just numbers. But I know enough ancient history to know, oh no, they weren't interested in that stuff just to, you know, they weren't interested in that stuff because they wanted to build a bridge. They were interested in that stuff because for them this was knowledge, and not just knowledge about, you know, how to get something done, but knowledge about reality and philosophy in the world. So what is this book about?
Euclid's Elements is a compilation of knowledge. So it's, of course, Euclid might not be real. You know, what are you going to do?
Historical Euclid? We got to go down that road too? Okay.
That's not important. But
okay.
It's a compilation of all of the knowledge that was picked up, probably from a lot of the Pythagoreans, but people who would travel to Egypt and the Greek civilization of that time. It starts out, the first line is definition. A point is that which has no part. And this is what a point is, this is what a line is, this is what a square is, this is what a right angle is, this is what a circle is. It's just definitions. There's no fluff, you know, right to the point. When you learn Euclid today, I compare it to listening to Mozart on a little MIDI keyboard. It's been completely washed away from the original source. Everyone learns Euclidean geometry, but they don't learn it from Euclid. And I would rather listen to Mozart play his music than someone with one finger bashing on a little MIDI keyboard. I really focus on reading the actual text.
Okay.
And
sorry to distract you. Keep going. You're doing good.
So then it has these 5 postulates, which are rules for how to use a ruler and a compass. So the first postulate says, if you have 2 points, you can draw a straight line connecting them. That's an axiom. That's a fundamental assertion that is self-evident, and we're starting from there. Then if you have 2 points, you can draw a circle. Any line that you have can be extended. You imagine I put a ruler and just kept drawing. These are the axioms. Then there's the famous parallel postulate, which is you could talk about that for, I mean, days, about the parallel postulate and its relationship to general relativity and like Pablo Picasso's work. And the parallel postulate was like dogma in the Catholic Church. Like when people started discovering that Euclid's Elements might not be absolute, people were afraid to tell people because Euclid's Elements was considered to be so there's a quote, there's a poem that says, Euclid alone has stared upon beauty bare. and that the Euclid's Elements was the closest to the mind of God that people had achieved. It's this rigorous deduction of all of the mathematical knowledge. So like the Pythagorean theorem is proposition 47. So they prove 46 things, and then they prove the Pythagorean theorem, and it's huge. All of high school math is in this book, way more. I mean, this book is already more advanced than the high school math we teach today. And
this is a foundationalism at its best. So here's a point. You're not going to get anything below a point. Then you 2 points. You have a line or a circle. So this is a foundationalism that you are building the world from your self-evident, non-reducible principles.
Absolutely. And I mean, I want to hit the major points, because if I'm not careful, I will talk about Euclid for an hour.
Okay.
So and I understand that, you know, this book wasn't true. So I want to start comparing this to the Bible now.
Okay.
Euclid's Elements was not written in a day or a weekend. This is a compendium of knowledge that is constantly self-referencing itself, because literally everything is pointing back to every step in the argument. This is an axiom, this is a previously proved proposition, or this is a definition, and so everything is delineated. And I mean, this book probably influenced how people read the Bible, because they read it like Euclid. They start from these axioms and they deduce things. So I understood what it meant to rigorously study something and to study a book that is beyond a single human life. This is a compendium of knowledge. This is, you know, hundreds of years of work being consolidated and ordered and put together and structured in such a way that it has been timeless and is still working today. One thing I taught at Westville Penitentiary through the University of Notre Dame, and I gave them Euclid's Elements with the left side in Greek and the right side in English. And so I really say I am a missionary for Euclid, because I think everyone needs to read. I think everyone needs to read the Bible, and I think everyone needs to read Euclid. You know,
see, I'm going to go out and buy this sucker now, and a diglot where you've got the Greek and the English. I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah. So Euclid is a big deal, and so also Neoplatonism was a very important part, because even though I was a devout atheist, I of course, being homo-religious, I'm still engaging in things, and so I got really into Neoplatonism. And so the Trinity was something that already made perfect sense to me. It's related to my tattoos. I've interpreted a lot of these mythical ideas and structures into my mathematical metaphysics. So this is the empty set. It's everything that is not itself. So Leibniz gave us the axiom of logic, A equals A. And if you can talk about it, A has to equal A. And this is everything that is not equal to itself. And so we call it the empty set. But one of my professors said the empty set is not empty. Its elements are not equal to themselves. And I interpret this as everything that doesn't make sense, that you can't comprehend, we're going to all put it in here, collapse it to a point, and say it's empty. There's nothing there. So everything in math, the metaphysics of math, in this branch that I called set theory, everything that mathematicians talk about is a set containing a set, containing a set, containing a set, containing the empty set. So the empty set plays the role of the demiurge in Neoplatonist philosophy. Or, I mean, for me, I thought of it as God. I mean, even when I was an atheist, I would say this to me represents what God is. And I've seen this in other texts. It's the emptiest set of all empties. It's an absolute. It transcends everything else in this extreme way. And then this is the set containing the empty set. So this has one thing in it. This has nothing in it. This has one thing in it, and it's this thing. And this is awareness of nothing, right? This, for me, I interpreted this to mean consciousness, the recognition of nothing, the recognition of emptiness, the recognition of the demiurge, the point from which everything comes from. And then the two of them, so this is the number 1. This is the number 0. The number 2 is the set with 2 elements, the empty set and the set containing the empty set. And so that's what the number 2 is metaphysically. What is it? It's this thing. And so then 0, 1, and 2 becomes the Trinity, and it relates to, you have the demiurge, and then it created this thing, and then it looked back on itself and created the Trinity, which is, you know, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. All the stuff I was already into is already in Christianity, coming from the Greek, which is where I got it from Euclid, from all of these ideas. And that's an important part of my story, is that I'm a Euclid guy, I'm an ancient Greek guy. And so then
there are some people who are going to really nerd out about this video. I know it already, and I can already hear them in the back of my head. So they'll probably get contacting you. So just be prepared. So keep going.
Oh, great, yeah. So the logos was really important. In my philosophy class, he taught us that the logos is a power that human beings possess, like the power of locomotion, the power of speech, and all these things. And it's a power to illuminate some topic from all angles. Using dialogue is an engaging in the power together to understand a single point and to look at it from all other areas. But there's also an emergent ethic from the logos, is that if someone says something you don't agree with, you have to call them out on it and try and work with that, because there's an emergent ethic of trying to get at the thing that you're talking about. And I was like, yeah, that's math. Math is applied logos. You know, I saw everything as trying to understand my identity as a mathematician and what I'm trying to study. And the logos was very important for me. And so I think that we got about half an hour in. This is a good segue to start getting into JBP and the events around that. You gotta have some. Okay. I'll probably want to talk to you more, you know, schedule another meeting.
That's fine.
I know Job is a returning guest.
Yeah. It's getting harder. Slots are getting harder and harder to come by. So it's a competition out there, but the persistent win the prize.
Great. So now let's get to JBP. So
okay, back to the narrative of your life. So you're an atheist, and you're in college. You're an atheist. You identify as an atheist all the way through undergrad.
Yeah.
Okay. So that you graduate from your undergrad about what year?
2013. 2013.
Okay. So Peterson is, you know, not really on the radar until kind of mid 2016. He really starts hitting the news feeds. So.
Yeah. So one thing I will say is that when I got to graduate, so I'm here at the University of Notre Dame, and when I got here, I really thought about starting a math church.
Now, why did you go to Notre Dame if you're an atheist?
It was the only graduate program that I got into.
Oh, that's a good reason. God bless the Catholics.
Yeah, they're great. I enjoy their hospitality. Every single room has a crucifix with Jesus on it. I used to think that was weird, but I love it now. It's like, he's always there. And they don't have cameras anywhere. I think the crucifix does enough work that people like a camera, right? The Sky Daddy. But so PhDs, their statistics, 50% of people getting a PhD are depressed. A large amount of them are suicidal. You're becoming a monk to study something that no one cares about.
Wow.
And you can't talk to anyone. So, I mean, it's a traumatic experience for most people. Also, I think what's important is becoming 25 years old in that process, and your brain's finally developed, and quarter life crisis or whatever. I was in a really dark place. I've actually lost 65 pounds. You know, I was very overweight. I was an alcoholic. I smoked way too much cigarettes. I stayed up way too late. I was the bucko living in the basement, you know, not doing anything with my life. And I would spend a lot of time on the couch listening to Sam Harris podcasts about free will not being real. And also this guy, Max Tegmark, if you've heard of him. He's a mathematician who has the mathematical universe hypothesis. He has an interesting, I mean, it's extreme Platonism, I guess, is the easy way to put it. But I was not getting anything from this, you know, and I could just feel this nihilism eating away at my soul. I could see myself not achieving the goals I wanted. And so I was in a really bad place. So this is an important part of the story that I want to get to is in 2016, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
All right.
Yeah, and he died last year in March. And so, yeah, it all worked out in, you know, as best as it could. And then this is why I want to share my story and why I identify with Peterson, is that my dad gave me this Eye of Horus necklace. And so I really identify with rescuing your father from the underworld, you know. I can't hear you.
Yeah, that was my fault. My dog started making noise. My dog has very bad timing, and so I didn't want that interrupting. But keep going. I'm listening.
Yeah. So, you know, I was in this really dark place, and my dad had cancer. You know, that's in the back of my mind. And I first saw Jordan Peterson on Dave Rubin's show. He was interviewing him there, and then I was like, hey, this guy is, you know, I'm an academic. So I like listening to academics. And so I YouTubed him and saw his first biblical series, and I watched it all the way straight. And then I watched the second one, and I started watching the third one, but I had to fall asleep, you know, and I've watched everything he's got. I listened to Maps of Meaning on audio book, you know, 12 Rules for Life, all of it. And because of my background with Euclid, I immediately understood that even if, you know, it could be the case that all of Christianity today is doing something wrong, but the book is there, you know, like there's something here in this book. It's not an accident. It wasn't written in a day, you know. And so that is what really got my interest, was knowing what it would mean to really study the Bible and know that everything cross-references itself, and the 63,000 cross-references. I became like, okay, you know what? One way I'll define my faith is I'm going to spend my life trying to use this book to gain wisdom about love, and like wisdom in action, like Vervaeke talks about. Like, so I would say I identify as a Christian, or I am a Christian. It's still weird, you know, for me saying these things, because we need elephants around us to do it, so it doesn't feel weird. Like, I came out as Christian to some of my friends, and I was really apprehensive, but they didn't care at all, and I was very, very happy about that. But so my faith is that I think this book is bottomless. Peterson is not bottomless. I've listened to it all, and it's eventually like, okay, you know, but that book is bottomless. And one aspect of my faith is that I will read this book and try to understand it until I got everything out of it. And my faith is that I don't think I'm going to get everything out of it. Right. So I identify with that.
So what about Peterson hooked you?
A lot of the biological arguments coming from my Richard Dawkins reading and just science in general, I was really interested in the Homo sapiens evolved in the presence of snakes and ripe fruit giving us vision. What was also really salient to me was what I think it's really well said by Vervaeke in his first lecture, that myths are perennial truths that last forever. I began to see that partly from reading Mathieu Pajot's book, Jonathan's Brother, which is really incredible. I felt kind of like a tin hat person reading it, because I was like, where is he getting this from?
I know the feeling looking at that book. It's like, okay.
On what authority? Like, I'm following
exactly.
this guy, but where are you getting this from? Because it all makes sense, and I don't know if I'm being duped here, but like time the number 7, there are 7 days of creation, is related to pi being an irrational number. I was like, this speaks to me. You know? So I understood that the Garden of Eden isn't just a historical event. It's an event that happens every day. So Mathieu Pajot explains how the Copernican revolution was us exiting the garden again and feeling naked by removing ourselves from the physical coherence with the symbolic representation of rising sun every day, flat earth and things, right? That there's something to be gained from the coherence of your physical explanation and your symbolic representation. And every time we remove that, we feel naked, we feel nihilist, we feel like nothing matters. And so like leaving the garden could happen to you every day if you aren't trying to do it. And I also understand, and I started to interpret Cain and Abel happens every day. The flood happens every day in someone's life somewhere. Yeah. So for instance, the answer to the flood is your family, right? Like for me, it really stuck out that the flood myth is a story about the importance of family, and laughing at his drunken father or drunken parent is something that really resonates. And so when I first got into this, I was kind of hesitant, to identify as a Christian or anything, but what I started seeing was, as I started acting it out, these narrative frameworks give me a series of safety nets, because I still have an extremely, coming from the materialist atheist perspective, that is the saw cutting the branch that I sit on. And it will destroy everything if I'm not careful. And so if I get sad or depressed, I fall into one layer of the story, like, no, God loves me, and if that doesn't work, or, it definitely helped with depression just to have these safety nets that, depending on how sharp my rational mind was cutting, I might be able to land through 3 of them, but the 4th one will catch me and then I can get on with my day. So living in this narrative is really helpful. Like every time I look at a person now, I try to remember I'm looking at God right now. I have to love this person. This is, for instance, the wise man learns something from everyone, and that helps. And also just so what attracts me about Peterson is the science really got me because I was scientifically minded. The myth got to me because I'm a very mathematical person, but I also am an artist. So the symbolism is really good. It's really salient to me. I think that a Jungian psychotherapist would be very effective on me because of how I think in symbols. And for instance, I read the first chapter of Erich Neumann's book, The History of an Origin of Consciousness. And the thesis of the book is that the symbolic representation of consciousness details the individual transformations as well as the historical sociological transformation. So you look at the progression of the archetypes from the Ouroboros to the Great Mother to the Father, and et cetera. And this represents a fundamental transformations in the state of consciousness that humanity has gone through and each individual person goes through. And so one thing that I saw useful about Christianity is that this narrative framework, Peterson gave me multiple narrative frameworks. I have the Art of War, and this has the Tao Te Ching in here, and I started reading that, and I started reading about the archetypes and things, and I began to see that I could frame my life in the archetype explanatory. Oh, I'm thinking about a girl right now. That is my anima possessing me, or I don't remember which one is the anima or the animus. So it was these interpretive frameworks. And so Peterson actually delving in all these different ones gave me the different interpretive frameworks. And so I started to really see what Christianity was offering, and these safety nets and these different interpretations. And, going between Buddhism and Christianity, there's a lot of overlaps, but there's differences. For me, one is the East is about meditating to empty your mind, but I see the Christianity as meditating to fill your mind with something. So, right. So for instance, in late 2017, I came out on Facebook and I said, I'm converting to Christianity. Let's talk about it. And I got a lot of weird mixed vibes.
It's Facebook.
People don't know what to do with me because I'm the smart guy with the high IQ who's doing math. And now I'm, whoa.
Yeah.
It's weird. But
we thought religion was for stupid people.
Yeah.
That needed help, not smart people who don't need help.
I would definitely wanted to share this with you. The person in the United States with the highest IQ has an IQ of 200. He lives by himself in a cabin with his wife, who he found on Mensa. And he reads the Bible every day. And so I'm like, hey, this guy with the 200 IQ is reading this book every day. Man, there's gotta be something there, right? And this is a very important point that Jordan Peterson makes to Sam Harris is he says it's for stupid people, and Jordan Peterson says we're all stupid, man.
And you have to be smart enough to know that. I mean, to a certain degree, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson makes a wonderful illustration that the more you know you don't know. And I think the correlate is the smarter you are, you realize how stupid you really are. You're just not smart enough because you see so much and you begin to understand how deep things go when you say, I can never know it all. I can never do it all. I can never be it all. And that then leaves a hole in the universe. And what do you do with that hole? You got to do something with it. You might fall into it.
Your ego?
Yeah. You will always be lacking. You will never, there will, in fact, the more you have, the more you will lack. The more you know, the more you don't know. That just keeps going. And so suddenly you have to do something with that. And I think a lot of people just fall into it. And then where are you? So no, those are good points. So, okay, so you're already at Notre Dame, so you're surrounded by, probably quite a few Christians, because Catholic. I know there are a lot of Protestants at Notre Dame too.
And Protestants, yeah.
That's a joke. There's a Christian Reformed church in South Bend that is it's kind of it's known in the CRC as kind of the Notre Dame. It's kind of the Notre Dame CRC. Alvin Plantinga, of course, taught at Notre Dame. Mark Knoll in history was at Notre Dame, and so that tended to be where a bunch of CRC academics who went on to teach at Notre Dame would then worship. So I
might stop by there. I'm still in need of a church.
You should stop by there. And Len Van
Paul sent me.
Tell Paul Vanderklay sent you, and they'll probably say, Paul, we don't want to hear that guy's name. But Len Vandesy, who's a friend of mine, I'm going to have him on the channel one of these days. He was the pastor at Notre Dame for quite a few years, and Let Speak says nothing but churches are not their pastors, and that's something that I really want to emphasize. Churches are communities, and my friend Len Vandesy says nothing but wonderful things about that church at Notre Dame, in South Bend, Indiana. So.
A friend of mine is a Seventh-day Adventist, and he told me that churches are hospitals. They're for sick people.
That's true too.
Yeah.
But we're all sick. We're all dumb, and we're all sick. But that's my Calvinism too. So around the end of 2017, I began to publicly identify as Christian, partly because I wanted people to know I'm into this, and I want people to talk to me about it, and I want to learn. And people were accusing me, oh, you're not a real Christian, and my answer is always like, what? I didn't know you had that authority. Maybe you exist. Right? It's very weird. But so what really sticks with me, so I read the book of Genesis, I read the book of Job, and now I've read the 4 Gospels, and I have an app, I read 1 verse a day or more. But what was so impactful for me was like reading the book of Job and watching my dying father. Wow.
So my dad never complained. he was on all these medications so that he turned into a yellow skeleton. The medication started attacking his liver. And like, I remember one of the last memories I had of my dad was like coming down at 1 a.m. and this like skeleton of a person is typing out an email to my mom about his cremation. And he never complained about anything. And all I could think of was Jesus. And seeing that, you know, like, are you thirsty, Jesus? And then they pour vinegar in his mouth and just not, I don't know. I've seen people transcend death in a spiritual sense.
Yeah.
And what it is here that my dad possessed is what the people, when Jordan Peterson's talking about Viktor Frankl, he's talking about Solzhenitsyn, who survives the concentration camps? It's people who have otherworldly gifts of keeping their dignity and keeping their sincerity. And I always think of the image Jordan Peterson gives of the gates of heaven are guarded by angels with flaming swords. And as you walk through, whatever is left, the dead wood is burned off, and whatever you have left in your soul will pass through the gates of heaven. And so I see that. It's like my dad, you know, so you start thinking, oh, is my dad in heaven? Is he in hell? And God knows my dad better than I did. And I'm pretty sure he's doing well, because he saved his immortal soul by I don't know. And just seeing I couldn't have done that, you know, all that I thought. So Jordan Peterson stuck in my mind immediately because I had a father dying of cancer, and he says, be the person that people need at your dad's funeral. And I was like, I'm going to do that. If I do anything, I'm going to do that, you know. And like I gave the eulogy at my dad's funeral. That was really helpful. It was a Catholic presentation. He was at a Catholic hospice, you know, and I did the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit to keep it in the Catholic tradition, you know. I don't know. But no, that's definitely, I mean, and it's not magic, you know, like a lot of people say, you think, oh, I'm going to become Christian and all of a sudden something's going to happen, you know, and there was nothing magical, like from the empirical perspective of watching my father die, but I identify with the spiritual nature of his suffering and overcoming his suffering and just surviving through that. And so that to me is what's tangible about like the spirit that, you know, and Jordan Peterson talks about it with his daughter, Michaela, right? Her life could have been much worse if she sacrificed her dignity. And so that, of course, really got me into this kind of stuff, and seeing that it's not a glowing, you know, LSD hallucination of something going on,
right? Like
spirits and stuff.
It's in real life. It's real time. It's in the flesh. No, that's right.
Yeah, and so I mostly wanted to share that story. Like, I mean, I just have gained so much by listening to the other people on your channel who've talked about, like the guy who was, you know, had a gun to his head, and I'm like, you know, that there's some wounded people out there, but that's what's real to me is seeing someone transcend death in some righteous moral sense. That really helps keep me I don't know, but here we are. I don't know, I wrote down a bunch of stuff.
Well, about 3 or 4 more minutes and then the next guy comes, so
sure.
Anything you want to get in quick?
Yeah, so part of the reason why I did this is I want you to steal from me. That's my goal. I want
Well, if you give me permission to post this, folks are going to watch this, because again, I mean, a lot of the early math stuff we talked about, some people are going to be all over that thing. I know.
That's great. Yeah. So here's.
And you're on Twitter, so they'll be able to find you on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel, which is math-based, where I'm trying to do some Jesus smuggling in there because I believe in the logos.
Okay.
So my YouTube channel is Math Does Not Make Sense. Sense makes math, because you embody the logos to manifest the archetypes of the mathematical unconscious into your vision. Like, that's my philosophy of math, is that at the very least, you know, I believe math are objective like Esther's objective morality, 2 + 2 = 4 is up there, right? I believe in that, but in the very least, math is an archetype that we encounter through embodying the logos. So I Jesus smuggle on my YouTube channel. But so here was something that was really important when I was first getting into Peterson, was the notion of sacrifice. I thought to myself, I need to quit smoking. What if I killed my cat? What if I took my bare hands and said, I'm going to quit smoking, and I choked my cat to death in my hands and watched myself do that? And I was like, you know what? I'd probably quit smoking if I did that. You know,
please,
like, but
please don't tell me that you did this.
No, I did not. I did not do this. I still smoke cigarettes, unfortunately. I'm quitting. So the cat's fine. No, she's safe. I love my cat.
Oh.
But this was, you know, I like it because it's kind of a joke, but it really, this is how I understood sacrifice. Like,
well, as a pastor, let me tell you, I can laugh about this, but part of me can only laugh about this because this is within the realm of possibility. But I would imagine someone coming and telling me, Pastor, I needed to quit smoking, so I read the Bible and I heard about sacrifice, but I didn't have an ox, I didn't have a goat, and so I had my cat, and so I sacrificed my cat to the Lord with a prayer that I quit smoking. I honestly, I mean, people don't know how strange the world is. As a pastor, you learn this, and so to have someone actually tell me that story is not beyond the realm of possibility. So I just wanted to make sure, and my pastoral advice to you is respect the cat, okay? Do not offer the cat as a sacrifice for you to quit smoking. Find another way.
Yes, definitely. I also kind of get this coming from Miami. They have a Santeria, which
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, the chicken might get it. But see, it's weird because the idea of sacrificing a chicken to us doesn't feel like sacrificing a cat.
Yeah.
But, you know, read David and Nathan's parable to David about the lamb. You know, the one lamb was a pet in the family, and then the rich man took the lamb and sacrificed it to give it to his guest. And we don't eat cats, but it's, anyway, that's,
yeah.
Oh. Well, we'll have to talk again because
absolutely
we're about out of time. But this was delightful. This was delightful. And send me the link to your YouTube channel on Twitter, and I'll, you know, my sense is that, I mean, I will send this to you and you can preview it, but my sense is that you're probably good with sharing it. And I think,
please, I don't need to look at it. I definitely want to join this conversation. I've been thinking about talking to you for a very long time, and I'm finally doing it. You know, I'm in Esther O'Reilly's mentions all the time, trying to add, especially after the math stuff.
Yeah. Well, Esther is, it's so funny when someone, what's amazing about something like Twitter is it's like, it kind of extends our minds. I think it was John Buck who said, Esther is she's the annoying kid sister of the IDW. And he said that, it was just whoosh.
Yeah, perfect. It's genius. Yeah.
She's kind of like Daphne on the, it's kind of like Daphne in was it Daphne? No, it wasn't Daphne. It was who was the smart one in Scooby-Doo?
Velma?
Was it Velma? She's kind of like Velma in Scooby-Doo. That's right. And she's gonna probably hate. I bust on poor Esther all the time. I'm gonna get snide comments about this too. Poor Esther.
She's great.
Yeah, it's all in fun. Well, thank you so much, Eric. I wish I had more time, but I got someone else after you. So, and I'm sure I'll see you on Twitter. And I've got a pretty good stockpile of videos right now, but I've got some travel coming up. So I usually kind of stockpile them. So when I have travel, I can still just kind of eke out content every day, even when I don't have time to do my own videos. So probably next week or so it'll come out.
Awesome. Yeah,
okay.
I'll schedule another one soon, and I'll see you on Twitter.
Okay, Eric.
Thanks for all this you do, Paul.
Oh, my pleasure. It's too much fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah. All right. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.